All right, welcome back to Two E's in a Pod. I'm Emeka.
I'm Eche.
And we're here for another episode. And so this is all about how to fall in love with creativity. All right, so for both of us, we have our own creative juices. And so we just want to talk about the process of now falling in love with being able to create things that people can enjoy and take in and hopefully put a positive message out there in the world. And so we want to know what it is that you have in terms of creativity. How did you fall in love with creativity? We are going to share our stories, our journeys about the things that we do. And without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Eche and he's going to break it down to you what he does when it comes to being creative.
Man, where do I start? I'll start with primary school. Right? Let me start with primary school. This is the reason why I love primary school more than every other aspect of education. Primary school was, you get a bit of info, then you now create something. You create a story and they put the story on the walls. It's like, oh yeah, I made that story, you know. Okay, let's do something, let's paint something, let's work with our hands. Right? There was a freedom in there, right? So I always loved that essence from primary school. Just kind of creating. One of the things that I did back when I was a child, I enjoyed Dragon Ball Z like everybody else, but I said, you know what? Let me create my own comic book, right? Me and my friend Dan. Shout out to Dan, man. We had a comic book, and we did that, right? So from an early age, I've loved stories, right? Your stories by Emeka. You love stories as well. So that's one of the things, and that's one thing I would like to actually ask the audience to contemplate. When you were younger, what did you just get lost in? What did you really think about? Primary, think about secondary school. What subjects did you really rock with? Right? For me, drama.
Yeah.
When I saw double drama, bro. Man, double drama. Let's go, man. And even English, of course. Like, I like to create my own stories in English, right? So it's a natural progression that now, fast forward 20-some years, right? I'm in front of the camera expressing myself, right? But I'm also writing spoken word raps, however you frame it, got a book in the works, okay? So just multiple different facets of creativity being explored, okay? Now, what about yourself? What things did you really resonate with as a child, and then how did you kind of manifest to where you're at right now?
Yeah, I would link it back to sort of primary school, but I think it sort of really blossomed when I got to secondary school. And it was down to, I think it was my year 8 teacher, English teacher, and so he brought the lesson alive with his storytelling. He just told stories, and then obviously mixed in with the work. But just like I just remembered him being able to tell wonderful stories, whether he was reading from the book or whether he was telling his own story. And how he told the story was very engaging, and so it's like had everybody on the edge of their seats. And I was like, oh man, one day I want to be able to tell stories like this. So I remember him, that was specifically year 8, this is before things got very intense in year 9 and year 10 and junior GCSEs. So that was the first early part of it. And then we're now in sort of 2001, 2002, and we're now in the heart of grime in regards to Boy in the Corner's about to come out, 2003. We've got Nasty Crew, 8 o'clock on Mondays, everybody's taping it. So we're now in that heart. And so around me where we grew up, it's like you have people who are MCs, you have the people who are the producers, and so on and so forth. So I'm just trying to figure out, where do I fit into this landscape? So 2 of my boys, closest boys at the time, they're heavy on the beats. All right, so we now created RVT Productions. So I'm like, okay, I'm not as good as them, but I'm going to try my hand in, using logic, using reason. I made a few beats here and there, but it was more of their things. But I found some creativity, and then I was able to make a few beats. Okay, looking at the landscape of, okay, these guys are MCs. And so I thought, let me see if I can write 1-2 bars. But knowing how, from a rap perspective, rap is rhythm and poetry. I had the words, but I wasn't trying to not be an MC. But I started writing poetry, but not for anyone else. It was just more for me in terms of understanding who I am, culture. I started reading more about sort of Black history at that point as well. So there was a lot of growth and learning happening in that period. So that was my creativity, but it wasn't licensed for anybody else. It was just me, and I still have that book up until today. Literally from 2001 to 2003, I had a 2-year period of just writing different things down, and that's just locked away in the vaults. And so that was the early onset of my tapping into my creativity. And then obviously the older you get, and you're now bogged down into education, knee deep into it.
Sorry to cut you off, but there's something, like, you are so ahead of your time. You see, you've even forgot about this. because this was like a classic before any kind of social media. What is it that you did with a camera in your secondary school?
So yeah, I would say that I liked memories. I liked creating memories, and yeah, remember we had a camera. We had the floppy disk cameras, so we put the floppy disk in. So I just became that person, just taking pictures of every family event and so on and so forth. And then we also had the camcorder. So everything in terms of the little kids' birthday parties, everybody would call me to do it. And then I remember in year 11 we were about to leave, and I just said, you know what? The last 2 weeks we need to document this. Just every day, I just brought the camera in. And it was like, oh, have you got that massive camera? I'm like, listen, one day I'm gonna put this stuff somewhere, and everyone's gonna access it, and you guys are gonna lose your mind in regards to how far we've come. And literally, it was our 10th anniversary. This is 20. When did we leave school? We left 2000 and when did I leave school? 2003. So in 2013, 10 years later, I remember I put some stuff on YouTube. I mean, not YouTube, but on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then everybody just like, oh my God, is that us? And that was only 10 years. So imagine, you know, this is the 20th year that we've left. So if I can resurface some more of those footage, but yeah, it was just more of, okay, creating that, editing it, putting it together. And even then, if I look at it, it was more like a mini documentary, because I'm going to people and asking them about different questions and so, and that's a different form of creativity as well.
Listen, I used to watch that. I'm like, I then knew these individuals, even though I've never met them. I met your friends through that. Like, it was so innovative, and I enjoyed watching that. And I was like, oh, look at these different characters, look at these different personalities in their element. Because at that time, of course, the camera is there, but it still has that novelty. So just like me getting an inside perspective about year 11, and I'm in like year 8, so I'm just watching in awe as these things are kind of manifesting. So I just felt that it's important to highlight that you were ahead of the game from way back then.
Yeah, no, I think it was, you know, it was something that I really enjoyed doing, and I continued sort of doing in terms of continuously having a camera and just creating visuals, interviewing people, and just mini documentaries, and sort of started learning how to use some of these professional softwares, Final Cut Pro, to now sort of, okay, make it a bit more neater moving forward. And so, but then if you don't continue with it, or you're now focusing on different things, and for instance, education has its way of sucking out that creativity from you, because you're now worried about essays and referencing rather than some of these other things. And so it's, you know, from that perspective, it's like, you know, you park that to the side, especially if you don't see yourself being able to, you know, to turn that into a full-time career as well.
Yeah. So there's something that I want to hear from you, right? And then I want to kind of talk about some of the solutions that some people might want to actually implement, because people have things to share, things to offer to the world, right? So you've gone from producing that documentary in secondary school to now authorship.
Yeah.
Authorship. So how did you make that transition?
Yeah, like I said, I remember year 8 was about storytelling, verbal storytelling, and listening to those books, and reading those books as well. And I think my year 8 teacher made me interested in reading. So fast forward, post university, sort of coming back to Hackney, being in youth work, those periods where you're engaging within the youth sort of made me think, you know what, there are so many different ways to share messages in terms of trying to inspire young people to talk about the issues that are important to them. And, you know, through tragedy at the time, in terms of losing one of the young people in the youth club at the time who was shot and killed, the work that we had done together was now taking the first step to now honor her memory, as well as, okay, let's take these conversations we've been having in the youth club with all these young people, and let's take that to the next level and engage in a more wider audience. So that was like my first step to writing. And that wasn't even a creative piece, it was writing, but it was more of this is factual, this is based on things that we have discussed and from my interpretation of some of the issues that face us in society. I really enjoyed that process of writing, but then for me, what kicked it on was like, I still wanted to write. Mm-hmm. But now I felt like I didn't have anything more to say on that specific topic from a non-fiction perspective. But I can now embed some of those issues in a novel, in fiction, and just be the master and the creator of a world that I can allow a lot of these young people who, a lot of the times, who given up on reading. You know, when they get to the late teens, reading now becomes a chore. It's boring because in this society where everything's a distraction, you've got Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Paramount. How much subscription do you need? We haven't even started talking about sports. So all of these things that would take you away from ultimately sitting down and reading a book for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and that's that's an investment and a half of somebody's time. So for me, it was more about, okay, I'm not just going to do what everybody else is doing. I know I can write. I have a story to tell, and this is the medium that I'm going to use to now push my message and my stories to the world.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a journey that has inspired me. I don't think you actually realize the significance of you actually putting that book out there and having that book launch, because it then made it possible for me to say, oh, I can write a book.
Yeah.
Big Bro wrote a book. I can write a book. Right? So it's important that the optics of it is important, that people can take inspiration from that. So that's one of the positive side effects of falling in love with creativity and actually stepping into that. Okay? And so here's one of the things that I would like to mention that is one of the biggest obstacles that I've faced, right? And you might be the same. And one of the things that will really cripple your creativity is, what is it? Comparison. They don't call it the thief for joy for no reason. That literally stunted me. Because as I wrote 1 lyric, 2 lyric, I'm comparing myself to the best of the best. Foolishness, right? I'm not good enough. This is not as good as this particular person, right? But eventually I found my own voice, right? And I stopped comparing myself to that particular individual. And if a comparison did happen, I would flip it on his head and turn it into inspiration, as opposed to, oh man, I will never be on their level. Right? So be inspired by the people who have mastered their craft, okay? Don't let that put you down, okay? If you believe in something, then you train up, learn the skills. YouTube is here, right? So express what is in your heart, okay? What value can you bring? So that piece about comparison for me has been a game changer. So now when I create, I make it because there's something that I have to express, right? I feel inspired, and if I'm happy with it, that's it. That's my barometer.
Yeah.
Am I rocking with it? If I am, then that's it.
Yeah.
If other people rock with it, happy days. If they don't, happy days.
That's the thing about being in a creative space, isn't it? Is in terms of once you're true to yourself in regards to what you're creating, it's now, as long as you've put that out there, that will filter and that will attract the people that connect to that message and connect to that level of creativity. Because one thing can't be for everybody.
Exactly.
Michael Jackson is regarded as one of the best musicians of all time. I'm sure you'll find an audience of people that just can't stand his music and don't like him. That doesn't take away from the fact that he was still one of the greatest of all time that does it. Same thing with Beyonce. She has a beehive who are very hardcore for her. But there's still so many people that don't really, that don't really take to her music like that. So if you now have that defeative mindset of thinking, oh, these people don't like it, these people don't like it. What are these people who have achieved that level of success? What are they doing? Because they have to now block everything else out and focus on the people that are taking in their message and that their talent as well. And that's just the way you have to look at it, because it can be quite daunting putting your things out there, especially as a writer. You go on Amazon, you click on the reviews, and you're like, whoa, okay, 2.5. Why did that person da-da-da-da-da? And for me, outside of friends and family, there's a level of bias. It's like, okay, what do people who don't know me, that don't have anything to connect to me, say about the work, and so on and so forth. So again, it's putting yourself out there, but at the same time, if you don't, there are so many people who are missing out on your message as well.
That's it, right? And that it's not easy, right? It's not easy getting to that point, but you have to take those small steps, those small strides, because as you said, there's people who are going to benefit from your message. Yeah,
and they will draw inspiration from what you've done, and you might be a pioneer in something. You might spark something within them. I know I think it was Tupac that said it. It's like, I might not be the person that changes the world, but I'm going to be somebody who sparks something in a person that changes the world. And that's just the way that I like to see it as well, in regards to continue to be creative and continue to sort of push boundaries irrespective of what the landscape is, because I believe in my story, in my message. And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. You got anything to add?
The I'm good. I think I've said everything that I wanted to say. This is a very close topic to the chest because, you know, as we said, been writing for so long, and I'm still on that journey. You know, we're still learning, we're still going, and so we'll keep pushing. We're just out here trying to make sure that people in general find the thing that they love to do, and then not to say you quit your 9 to 5. Find a way to incorporate it into your 9 to 5 if that's what brings in the money. But just say, okay, you know, I love doing this. Find time for it, because that might be the peace of mind that you need outside of that hustle and bustle of whatever you're doing for your 9 to 5.
Yeah. Okay. And then just a final one from me is what I would like to know from those watching is, in terms of creativity, what is it that you are either working on or hoping to create one day, right? In terms of stories, beats, lyrics, whatever, right? Let me know what are you working on? What projects are you working on? Okay? And if you have any questions or want to know anything else, please drop your comments in the box below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe if we've added value, right? Plenty more conversations to come from us, right? This is 2 E's and a pod. I'm Eche. This is Emeka.
Let's go.
Let's go.